Yo, what's up, everyone? And welcome back to the Locked On 49ers Squad Show. I'm your host, Eric Triple E. Engel. You may know me as the former producer for the Murph and Mac Morning Show on KMBR. And today, man, we got a lot of news this week about Trent Williams and his contract dispute, you could say, with the 49ers. And they're no strangers to this, but wow, for this team to be back in the same position again in yet another offseason, not what you want to see if you're a 49ers fan.
Hey, everybody, it's Dwayne Boyd, four-time Super Bowl champion with the San Francisco 49ers. And right now, the word on the street is that Matt Jones could be someone who could be coming along in a trade, which the 49ers could use some numbers to move up in the draft and get a good player. And it's already been brought up that Trent Williams is – you don't know what he's going to do. So he says he wants to come back, but hey, Matt Jones will make it a lot easier for them to find someone down the road to maybe sit in there for 14 years at that left tackle position.
And I'm Ayrton Osley. I'm in Indianapolis for the NFL Combine. I'll give you the down low on who you need to look out for in Indy this week.
Live coverage from the Combine and some Trent Williams discussion starts right now.
To all the faithful, it's the 49ers Squad. Everything San Francisco 49ers every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from Levi's Stadium. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. For those faithful to the Bay, the 49ers Squad Show starts now.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Thank you so much for joining us in another edition of the Locked On 49ers Squad Show. Shout out to everyone listening on the Locked On 49ers YouTube channel or on the podcast feed, however you're getting your podcast or however you're getting the show. We appreciate it. And guys, you know, Ayrton, I want to get into the Combine stuff, especially since you're there in person. We got a lot to get into as far as that goes a little bit later in the show. But the biggest piece of news for the 49er faithful starts with Trent Williams at the left tackle position. This is a guy who's owed $39 million or is going to be a $39 million cap hit next season. And they're trying to figure out a solution, the 49ers and Trent Williams are. John Lynch today said that he thinks that they can find a solution there. And I'm hoping that they can, because I don't really know how you replace a Trent Williams this abruptly, this quickly, how you pivot that fast. I know that we've talked in the past before, Dwayne, about how Trent's kind of, you know, in the twilight years of his career and he's starting to kind of wind it down. But the 49ers still do not have any sort of contingency plan in place at left tackle. How big of a loss do you think it would be if Trent Williams decides to walk?
Well, if Trent Williams decides to walk, I think what the 49ers can do is there's a few tackles in there. It's a free agents this year, so they could pull one of those guys in, and there may be a guy that could carry him for a couple of years, and then they can draft a left tackle that can sit there and watch this guy develop. I mean, they can let him develop into a player, and that, to me, Trent Williams is not a $39 million football player anymore, and I'm sure Trent Williams is not going to accept a penny less than what his number was last year. I can tell you that for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, there is some prospects they could also look at in the draft, and of course, we'll get the inside scoop on that from Ayrton in just a little bit. But I mean, it's more than just his play on the field that I think you'd be missing. Like this is the guy who wears the C on the chest. He comes out leading the charge out of the locker room, always carrying the boombox, you know. And I'm sure they can find another guy to carry the boombox, but it's the attitude that this guy plays with. We talk a lot on this show about tone setters, guys who set the standard for the rest of the team. That is what Trent Williams brings more than anything else to this offense. And you don't have, I don't think you have a single player on offense that can replace that intensity that he plays with. Yeah, you got George Kittle, but he's probably going to be out for at least the first month, maybe two of the season. So you're lacking an identity on offense if you lose him. You're lacking probably most importantly, the protection on Brock Purdy's blind side. Ayrton, if Trent Williams does decide to test the waters in free agency, how do you think the 49ers can replace him?
Oh, gosh, I don't know if they actually can. The best thing you can hope for with this is if he does end up leaving, you got to dip your foot into free agency somehow, try to get somebody else that you can, just because I don't think that there's patience in the 49ers coaching staff and in the franchise to wait to see if we can, if there's an opportunity for a tackle in the draft where they're picking, or trying to jump up for a tackle in a class that I think is okay. Not a lot of clear cut day one starting left tackles available. They just don't come around that often. So if Trent doesn't resign, if something can't get worked out, you got to go to free agency. You got to try to find a veteran that can take care of it, just because looking at the options on the roster right now, not a lot of confidence. There's, besides Trent Williams, there's Austin Pleasance, and beyond that, there's just not a lot of tackle depth at all. You got future contracts for Brandon Parker, Isaac Alarcon. It's like, okay, those are options for futures, but nothing that could help you immediately and fill that huge void.
Yeah, and I mean, there's some options out there. Rasheed Walker from the Green Bay Packers might be an option for the 49ers. Maybe Braden Smith, Jack Conklin. But I mean, none of these guys are sniffing Trent Williams level production at that position. And to lose a guy like that, I think would be a huge hit for the 49ers. But we're going to remain optimistic. We're going to remain positive, because I do think that they will get something done. It's not like this front office is new to these types of situations. It feels like every damn year there is some kind of contract dispute, a holdout, some kind of rumblings that somebody's disgruntled about money, or the 49ers can't make it work from their end of the cap situation, and continue to add to this team in the way that it needs to add to these many holes that they have throughout the roster. So, Dwayne, if they were to peek into free agency, do you have your eye on somebody that you would prefer them to go after?
I think if you're looking at guys in the free agency, I would go get what's the tackle from? Well, he's retired. He's the guy from Cleveland that we were talking about a while ago, but I think he's retired for good. But the thing with Trent Williams, if I can remember, what was he in the PPF? What was his ranking in the PPF in the top 100?
He was like, man, I can't quite remember. I do know he was second team All-Pro this last year, but I can't quite remember where he was at in the PFF rankings.
Well, you can't count the All-Pro thing, because that's all favorite to me. They're gonna pull the guy who's somebody's favorite. Okay, so if you're gonna look at that, it's hard to say. But I would say that with Trent, the thing that he misses training camp. Okay, then when he gets into the season, he hasn't finished the season in 2 years. Okay, so now he's another year older, and where is he going to end up this year? What do you take him? What do you look at him? What type player will he be? And he used to be a player that he was great, man. He could reach anybody. They could run outside. And now he's lost that ability to get that main block, his top block, and also getting to the second level. You don't see him getting to the second level anymore. So it's going to be one of those things where they're going to bring him back, okay, but, man, you better have somebody in the back seat waiting for him. Yeah, if he doesn't have what it takes to take you to a 17, 18, 19, 20 game season. So.
And I did just pull it up. He was ranked 20th in this year's PFF Top 101, 91.1 PFF overall grade, ranks him third among all tackles in general, all offensive tackles, and first among left tackles. So PFF still seems to think that Trent Williams has got something left in the tank. But I get what you're saying, Dwayne. When you watch him, he just doesn't seem like he's quite that same guy anymore. He still plays with that level of nastiness, and I think he's definitely still head and shoulders above the rest of anybody else that you can go get at the position now. But you can see when you watch it that he doesn't quite look like the Trent Williams of 3 years ago anymore. And I think that's a lot to expect out of somebody who's going to be 38 years old this next year. I think that's, Father Time wins all battles eventually. But this is a guy who, was an athletic freak for a lot of his career, and he still is to some extent, but when he starts to lose some of that athleticism as he gets older, it becomes very apparent that he's just not like you said, Dwayne, maybe not worth $40 million at that position. And I know that, like I said, there's slim pickings outside of Trent Williams to replace him this late just completely blow up your draft plan and try to go find something in free agency. You're kind of behind the eight ball on that a little bit. But I don't think that the 49ers were entirely unprepared for this. I think that this is probably something that John Lynch and the front office had maybe been mulling around in the back of their brains, that this might be something that could happen. And additionally, this is kind of a trend, right, that we see with Trent, where he tends to kind of figure out a way to get out of some of those early offseason activities. And at 37, 38 years old, maybe this is just Trent trying to get a few more days off. He doesn't, he gets that veteran rest day during the week at practice. And so maybe during the season. So maybe this is just a little bit of Trent trying to buy some time. What do you think, Ayrton? You think Trent's just maybe trying to get out of some OTAs with this contract thing?
Hey, he's done more OTAs than most of the other offensive players combined. I don't exactly entirely blame him. He's getting up there. He's like, I don't want to do the same stuff I've been doing since 2011. I'm good.
Yeah, and I mean, it would be a big loss, but this is it's something that you hope that the 49ers brass has kind of prepared for, or at least thought about, because it's not, again, this guy's 38 years old. It's not like it's a mystery that he's going to walk out that door soon one way or another, whether it's in retirement or whether, the 49ers just won't pony up enough money for him and he walks. But this is a position that I feel like you have so many other holes. You cannot add a hole at left tackle to this team and expect them to compete next year. I mean, I think it would be an absolutely devastating loss for them. Dwayne, I feel like you feel a little bit differently about this, and I feel like it would be a disaster if Trent Williams left. Do you think that the 49ers would be okay if Trent Williams does move on in free agency? Would you still expect this team to make the playoffs next year?
Well, I think they'll still have a good enough chance of making the playoffs if Trent moved along, because again, you go back and you look at that salary he has, and you can go out and get a couple more free agents that'll put you in a better place than you were last year. Yeah, and we talked about the 49ers in a wide receiver core that's lacking, and also in the secondary. And that's a lot that you can bring in the free agency with his bag of money. You're getting probably 2 to 3 great players for that $39 million that you're paying out. And you might have to keep your tight end there a little bit. George Kittle can go over on the left side a little bit and help that left tackle out. Or they can chip, or either somebody better slide and help. It's always a way. Like, to me, as a defensive coach, you knew where the best tackle was, okay? And when you're running games and you're going to put your best people away from him, okay? So, and just let him take care of let the other tackle, he's the guy that's going to be, you kind of put your fish over there. Because I remember I was a fish, I felt like I was the fish with Fred Dean, because whenever we would play like the Cincinnati Bengals or the Rams, he would always send me to Jackie Slater, or he would always send me over there with Anthony Munoz. So it's kind of like that in the NFL too. You never want to put your best player on our best player unless he wants to go over there with his ego and get beat up. And so you don't have to worry about that. That's what teams do. Yeah, they say, well, let's send this guy over here, to be a pigeon on our best tackle, and then we'll handle the other side of the offensive line. But I think with the 49ers, they could make the playoffs without him.
And like you said, there are, some guys you could go get in free agency that could maybe fill that void. Another one that we didn't bring up earlier, even though he's played a lot of games at guard for the Jets, is Elijah Vera Tucker. I think that's a guy who could maybe slide over to the tackle position. But again, do you really want to be gambling on a free agent and also a guy who might need to slide over to a new position? He's got the size for it, 6'5", 308, but I don't love all of the other options that you got out there. And I don't know. I think I might disagree with you on this, Dwayne. I think that if the 49ers don't have Trent, I think it'd be a big uphill battle for this team to get to the postseason. I mean, especially when you look around at the division, you got a lot of really good pass rushers in Los Angeles. You got a lot of really good pass rushers in Seattle. And I know that they can throw some multiple looks at you, and the pressure doesn't always come from that same side of the line. But if you got a hole on the blind side and you're facing two teams that are very, very, very good defensively that can get after the quarterback like they can, that's concerning to me. I don't think the 49ers have a great contingency plan. And while I do love the idea of George Kittle blocking more, I mean, give me more George Kittle blocks all the time. I love watching that guy just demolish defensive players, especially ones that are bigger than him on the line. It's so fun to watch. But I need George Kittle running some routes, catching some balls. I need Kyle Juszczyk being able to roam free as the OW on the offensive side of the ball. I don't want those guys permanently stuck blocking, helping out that left side. It's going to really limit what the 49ers can do offensively if they're in a situation where you got to keep one of those guys home to help with pass protection. It really stymies the creativity, the multiple looks that they can throw out there. So I don't know. And I don't really love the idea of going and spending, $20 million a year on a Rasheed Walker, who he's 26. I get that he was he's starting to enter his prime. He might be, I don't think he's going to be a Trent Williams level tackle ever in his career, but he could be a suitable, serviceable guy. But that's still $20 million a year that you're spending on a gamble on someone that's might or might not work out. So there's a lot of other options out there as well. A lot of other tackles. I mean, it's not really a left tackle rich free agency class, but there are several right tackles that they could maybe, slide over to the left side, or maybe even move a Colton McKivitz over there. Is that, I mean, if Trent Williams does move on, Ayrton, do you think that might be an option to maybe shuffle the line around and move like a Colton McKivitz or bring back a Spencer Burford and slide him into left tackle? Do you think any of those options might be on the table for the 49ers?
I think the latter one might be more on the table for Burford to come back, re-sign Burford, have him move out to tackle, because he played left tackle. He was career left tackle at UTSA. He's just on the he's slightly undersized, 6'4", 300. So that's why he ended up at guard. He just translated size-wise, translates better inside. But he played 4 years left tackle at UTSA. So I think if they're looking for the simplest, a simple answer in need with someone who is already in the building, already knows the offense, already played on the left side a lot, kick Burford out to tackle, maybe move Matt Hennessy, bring back Ben Barch, one of those guys, put him at left guard, maybe move Connor Colby over to left guard. Obviously, that's not ideal, but it would be a low cost and keeping things in-house way of being like, okay, as free agency starts, if Trent's out the door, at least we can work with this. We have that ahead of the draft.
Maybe another Austin Pleasance situation. I mean, that didn't really work out during the regular season for the 49ers this last year. None of these options, as we're talking about it, I mean, I think if you're watching on the YouTube channel, you can see me grimacing as we bring up each one of these names. None of them sound real great to me. I mean, when you're comparing Trent Williams, first ballot, he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. And when you're comparing a guy like that to just random dudes off the street and backup switching positions, it doesn't sound great. Doesn't feel good. It's not really what I want the 49ers to do. I think that ultimately, I do think they do get something done. Ultimately, this is not unfamiliar territory for John Lynch and the 49ers front office. They have done this, I mean, what seems like every single year since John has been the GM. It seems like a lot of years they have multiple guys in this position, and so far Trent's the only one to express this, to be in this position with the 49ers this offseason. So I do think they get something done. I don't think ultimately that when Trent Williams is sitting there at age 38 looking around at teams that he might be able to go to in free agency, I don't know that. I mean, obviously the priority for him is winning a Super Bowl. And I don't think that there's another team out there that he can go to right now that is going to give him a better shot than the 49ers would going into next season to win a Super Bowl and put that final feather in his cap. I think that the 49ers still are a contender to win the Super Bowl, especially if they're able to upgrade at some other positions. So ultimately, I think that something gets hashed out between John Lynch and Trent Williams and the 49ers. But if they do got to replace him, man, I don't feel too great about that situation. And maybe there are some options in the draft. And since we got our own Ayrton Ostley at the combine in Indianapolis. We should get into it. Let's talk about the draft, all the prospects, everything you need to know before the Underwear Olympics. The NFL combine kicks off really, I mean, it started today with interviews, but the good stuff starts tomorrow. So we'll get into all that and more next here on the Locked On 49ers Squad Show. Today's show is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Welcome to the 5 Hour Energy Flavor Draft with 18 different flavors to choose from, including new options like confetti craze, fruited rainbow, or cotton candy. There's something for everyone. The board is set, the flavors are ready, and I've got my number one pick for the 5 Hour Energy Flavor Draft. And I'm picking at number one overall, peach mango. I mean, you can't really go wrong with those two flavors. I'm a big stone fruit guy, a big tropical fruit guy. Maybe some citrus mentions coming up in the ensuing in the coming segment. We'll see about that. But man, that's my number one overall pick, peach mango. And if you're looking for a sleeper, maybe the pomegranate flavor. Pomegranate. Don't sleep on the pomegranate. It is so good. And also, cotton candy might be one to sneak into the back end of that first round. Cotton candy, it's a pretty solid flavor. I mean, it's a little sweet, but one great thing about 5 Hour Energy is that you get zero sugar with your sweet flavors. So have all the sweetness that you want. Go grab that cotton candy. Find your new favorite flavor of 5 Hour Energy shots, available online at 5hourenergy.com or Amazon. Welcome back to the Locked On 49ers Squad Show. I'm your host, Eric Triple E Engel, joined by my guys, Dwayne Board, 4-time Super Bowl champion, and Ayrton Osley of USA Today, a national NFL beat writer. And Ayrton is sitting there in Indianapolis right now, had a nice day at the combine, doing all the interviews for defensive players mostly today. Ayrton, big takeaway from today. What was the number one thing that stood out to you that you saw at the combine?
Oh man, getting to see all the defensive linemen in person. Some of these guys are huge. Some of these guys are just really, really big players. Even the ones that are kind of like on the quote unquote leaner side, like the smaller ones, like a David Bailey, who's like, oh man, he's only 6'3", 250, but it's like he's still 6'3", 250 pounds with long arms. Like, man, these are big. And then you see all the interior defensive linemen, Caleb Banks, who's 6'6", 330 easily, 35-inch arms, just a massive human. It's like, my goodness, it's another one of those times that just brings it home that you're like, these are athletes. They're built different.
Yeah, man. I remember a few years ago, I got to go and hold the parabolic mic on the sideline during an NFL game during Broncos Niners. I don't know if you guys remember that, like, really god awful. I think it was like an 11-9, 11-10 final in Denver, and that was the game that I chose to go do that job. So, great experience, bad choice on my part. I thought that was going to be a fun game to watch, but man, I had the same experience when I was standing there. I was like maybe 5 feet away from the defensive guys like Nick Bosa and Fred Warner. And I was just sitting there looking at these guys like, I know they're big, and I'm not, the smallest guy in the world, but man, every single dude out there made me feel like just the tiniest person alive. And Dwayne, I'm sure you did not have the same experience as me and Ayrton, because you were one of those just massive humans that was wrecking shop down there. So, just so you know, Dwayne, you're going around intimidating people like me and Ayrton just by walking, by walking around. So, just something for your brain, man.
Yeah, but you're looking at guys when they're in the pajamas and stuff. A lot of them is going past the look test really well, and also back at Indy too. Those guys are so up on the interviews, and I never liked doing the interviews there because they knew it was like programmed. It's like the agent had already told them the questions that they had to answer, and they just run right through them, and guys get so impressed with it. And the only way that I felt like that you really got a good feel for a guy, if you went to work him out one-on-one and sit down and had dinner with him, then you found out more and more about him, rather than being in an environment where you got 15 people in a room and everybody's fighting for that one question, and the kid is just rattling off programmed, and it's hard. To me, that's one of the worst things at the combine is the personal interviews. You can toss those things out the window, and you hear a coach that says, "Well, what's the one thing that you would like in a drill at Indy that you would like to change?" My thing was, man, change the interviews because those things are worthless.
And Dwayne, what did you think that was the as someone who I know it was a lot different back when you were coming into the NFL, but do you think that over the years, the way that the combine has kind of become this big thing, do you think that it's like a stressful thing for these guys to prepare for it, or do you think that some of these guys are already kind of coasting, resting on what they've already done, or do you think that now that the combine has, I mean, because every year I feel like you see some guy who just really falls off because of their poor combine score or whatever, and then they're just fine in the NFL. That they look just fine when they're in pads and playing at game speed. And the combine doesn't seem to tell the whole story, but it seems like we put a lot more weight into the combine now. So what's that been like to kind of watch that evolution since the time that you were a player to now, with how different the combine is?
Well, now it's so different that with TV and the fans are there, and when the players get fans in front of them, they change for some reason. And it's not like fans at a game. It's fans coming in watching you run around in pajamas, and that's the biggest change, is bringing the fans into the environment, and guys just get all pumped up, and you can see that the ones who are showboaters, okay, because you just watch them in the background. They're doing something to catch somebody's eye, and those are the guys you got to be careful of, the real showboaters. And the thing is great to have people there watching live, but you have to be, as a coach and as a scout, man, you have to be really keen on watching the guys and how they act, how they interact. You see guys walking around behind other guys, and talking to them, and especially the ones who don't work out. So those are the ones, because they're trying to make themselves look good, Well, hey, to me, everybody should work out there because there's nothing to it. Okay, quarterbacks throw. That's your job. Is throw the football, and run the 40. That's your job. To see how well you can run. Do the drills, and what are you hiding? Well, I'm gonna work out at my pro day. Okay, so what, you gonna be doing pretty much the same drill there? Why can't you work out here in front of all these people? And that's what gets me, is like, why? If I'm a football player, I'm going to go work as much as I can to get seen as much as I can. I'm not going to just go hide behind something. And it's like, well, he must be scared to compete against somebody. He's not working out. He's got something he's hiding. So that's my fallback on it. I really don't go for the old well, my agent told me don't work out. That's the worst. Okay, who you working for? Is your agent working for you, or you working for your agent? Okay, that's a big red flag. Well, my agent told me don't. Oh, red flag. So,
yeah, curious. Over time, I tend to agree with you at pretty much almost every situation. I think the Mendoza situation this year, I kind of get why for him. He doesn't really feel the need to go to the combine. He is the one blue chip prospect for at the quarterback position, and I don't know that there's anything he could really do to knock himself off of that number one position. He certainly can't improve his draft prospects anymore, I don't think, by doing anything at the combine, or I don't think anything he does at the combine or his pro day will change where he is drafted. I think that this guy could completely fail. I don't know if they still do the Wonderlic test, but I mean, he could get the lowest score of all time on the Wonderlic, and he would still go number one overall to the Raiders. I don't think it would matter at this point. I think this is kind of a different situation with him than in years past. Like, for instance, last year with Shedeur Sanders, who was not the number one clear overall best quarterback prospect. It's a guy who probably could have benefited a lot from doing some things at the combine instead of just waiting for his pro day. But Ayrton, as far as what you saw today, some mostly interviews, as you kind of explained earlier, was there anyone that was super charismatic, or anyone that jumped out to you that you've listened to talking, as Dwayne said, some of those answering some of those scripted questions today?
Yeah, no, first off, Dwayne, I got to agree with you on one part. Doing these interviews, if I had $1 for every single time someone in these interview scrums asked or yells out, "Did you interview with team X?" Like, "Did you interview with the Bucks or the Cowboys?" I wouldn't have any student loan debt. Like, it was so annoying. They just over and over again. So that's my one gripe is, can we stop asking over and over, which teams have you met with? Have you met with this team? Ask them a more interesting question. Come on. But anyways, there's some guys, the defensive linemen were pretty fun today, especially the interior guys. A lot of interesting personalities. Lee Hunter from Texas Tech probably stole the show. He was incredibly charismatic. He gave some pretty fun off script answers. I think he was one where he was like, "I'm going to lean into this." It's funny. He's one of the older prospects in the class. He talked about being a girl dad and how much that meant to him, which I'm like, that seems kind of genuine. That was pretty cool. And expecting another daughter in a couple weeks here, I think. But yeah, his 5-year-old, he was talking about how she's his motivation and kind of like the joys of being a dad while also being a football player. He also got his brother an 18-wheeler to help with his trucking company. And he was like, "I'm gonna tell you what, I have no idea how it works, but it works for him. He's got his business. That's great." So he was fun. Dante Corleone, the Cincinnati interior defensive lineman, he's one of those guys. He's on the shorter side. He's 6'1", but 336 pounds. So he's short, but he's got leverage and strength. And he was at the podium at one point, and somebody asked him, he was wearing a tank where he was wearing a sleeveless shirt. Most of the other guys are wearing, long sleeves or sweaters. He was wearing a sleeveless shirt, and someone asked him if he thinks anyone has bigger arms than him. And he just looked around the room and went, "No." Just 100% deadpan. No, which I don't blame him. He got pretty big arms. I'm not gonna lie, pretty powerful. And then I got to hear, we all got to ask another interior defensive lineman from Iowa State, Dominique Orange. He has one of my favorite nicknames in the class, Big Citrus, because he's classic orange. He's a big guy, 6'4", 325. He told us the story about how he didn't actually know that was a thing. He just went into Iowa State meeting with his nutritionist, and she called him Big Citrus. And he's like, "Wait, what are you talking about?" And she was like, "Oh, you haven't been on Twitter? Check Twitter." And so he checked it. And he's like, "I just hadn't been on that week." And I look, and oh my gosh, everyone's calling me Big Citrus. So he's like, "I have no idea who did that, but shout out to them." Also, he says he loves cuties, like the little peelable mandarins. So he put in a request if they're looking for their PR team's looking for any help. He's happy.
It makes me think of the the sumo oranges. Oh man, those things are so good, and they are like a mandarin hybrid. They're just like a giant big mandarin. We got to get this guy a sumo sponsorship. That would be the number one like top tier prospect. Why weren't they getting in on this on the NIL action? I mean, come on, it's right there. It's so easy. I mean, come on. We're giving you all the marketing ideas here on Locked On 49ers. Yeah, I mean, pretty entertaining day from the combine. But of course, the big important stuff starts tomorrow is when we really get some drills getting going for all these prospects. And Ayrton, who are you keeping an eye on? Who for the 49ers do you think fans should be watching? Maybe risers, fallers, and just in general, give me some guys that you think could really help improve their draft stock, or maybe might not impress at the combine and might slip down a little bit, just in general, not necessarily 49ers guys, but give me both of those, risers, fallers, and who you think 49ers fans should be keeping an eye on.
I think risers, it's tough to rise too much just because at the combine, I struggle with that sometimes. There's a few guys that I think of. I think Mississippi State wide receiver Brennan Thompson, he's a pretty safe bet to run the fastest 40-yard dash. Well, I say pretty safe bet. I don't want anybody necessarily wagering on that. But if I had a pick for the fastest 40-yard dash, it was going to be Brennan Thompson. He's an undersized guy, 5'9", 170 pounds, but he still led the SEC in receiving yards in 2025 without one of the best quarterbacks in the conference. He did a lot of it himself. If he had better quarterback play, he probably would have been, one of the most productive receivers in the country. So he's all speed. He's going to put on a great 40. That's going to be fun to watch. There's also a few of those interior defensive linemen that I talked about earlier, Corleone, Dominique Orange. Dominique Orange, he's 6'4", 325, apparently hit 34 inches in his vertical jump last summer. So some of these guys are just impressive. Keldrick Falk is one of my draft crushes. He's a guy where he's just all traits on the defensive line, 6'6", 285 pounds, solid floor as a run defender, but he's going to show off his speed. He said today he's aiming for the 4.6s, like high 4.6s in the 40-yard dash at that size, which is just impressive. So those guys are definitely ones I'm looking for. Gabe Akis, another edge rusher out of Illinois. He's a pretty good riser, definitely a productive edge rusher. He hit more than 20 miles per hour on GPS tracking a few times this past season, and he's reportedly he can hit more than 30 reps on the bench press at 6'3", 270. So that's some good mix of speed, power. This cornerback class blows my mind with how athletic they are. They're all like 6 foot, 6'1", 190 pounds, and probably going to run the 4.3s. So you could honestly pick a few of them. Always South Carolina provides the athletes. Brandon Cisse is no exception to that. He's probably going to be, in the low 4.3s at 6 foot, 190 pounds. Also a great broad jump, great vertical jumper. So there's a bunch of guys that, especially in the defensive back room, that I'm looking forward to seeing what they do. Just there's so many good corners, a lot of good safeties as well. And then I can't be remiss. Sonny Styles from Ohio State said he's participating. That's going to be, you got to get your popcorn ready for that. He's a linebacker, 6'4", 240. He's going to hit some ridiculous numbers.
Yeah, I've heard some Fred Warner comps from Sonny Styles, which is, I think that's a pretty big stretch, but I get it, the instincts, but I don't think anybody's Fred Warner, you know what I mean? But yeah, another guy who I think is going to put on an absolute show is Arvell Reese from Ohio State. I mean, he's already projected to be potentially the first edge rusher off the board, maybe going as high as number 2 to the Jets. But I think it's either him or David Bailey at that spot for the New York Jets. But I think Arvell Reese is going to be a guy who just, lights it up out there. He's going to be fun to watch. But as far as prospects that you think that the 49ers will be interested in, especially in their first round spot at the number 27 overall pick, are you still feeling wide receiver, or do you think that this Trent Williams thing has maybe changed some of the calculus there?
I think it could, but I doubt it just at that point of the draft. Are you thinking that first round? All the tackles that I would rate as first round guys, the majority of them have only played on the right side. So you think Spencer Fano out of Utah, he was the right side only for the Utes. Francis Mauigoa, also only the right side for Miami. Look at Caden Proctor. He played left tackle, but he's one where there's just a whole bunch of traits. And I think about Mekhi Becton, and I just get a little worried for a guy who's just an outlier athlete, outlier size, but lacks some consistency, needs a little technique development there. So I think I'd be curious to see if there would be a offensive tackle on the left side. A name that comes to mind is Caleb Tiernan out of Northwestern, 3-year starter on the left side for Northwestern. Excellent pass protector already. He's got a high floor as that. Didn't miss a game in 4 years, so you can rely on him health-wise. Big size, 6'7", 325. So he's got the kind of measurables where, hey, if you wanted a plug-and-play starter at left tackle, he's probably one of your best bets in the first round. That may be a bit early for him just because his ceiling's not super high compared to some of the other guys. But I am definitely looking out for how Casey Concepcion goes, Denzel Boston, how they measure in, how they go through drills, because I feel like those are probably going to be the more likely ones. Other guys I was thinking about if they fell, maybe a TJ Parker. That's one guy where a lot of the Clemson guys were asked today about their drop-off in production in 2025 compared to 2024, including Peter Woods, who was viewed as like a top 5 guy entering the year, but has since dropped. Their I think, coached line to say was, well, we added some people in the transfer portal, so kind of everybody had to eat So that's why our individual numbers weren't maybe quite as good. I'm like, okay, all right. But I could see TJ Parker falling. So I'm definitely curious to see how he measures in. A powerful edge rusher, big body, kind of that traditional power rusher that a lot of times Robert Saleh liked in years past that the 49ers have shown interest in. If you're looking for something a little bit different, maybe a little bit lighter, I know Cassius Howell's been rising up boards. He's got great bend, shorter frame, shorter arms, but just could be great for those penny fronts that we could see more of under Raheem Morris. So I'd say definitely those wide receivers, couple edge rushers, and maybe an offensive tackle. They're feeling it.
Well, I think you got me sold on the kid from Northwestern, because I think anytime the 49ers can get a healthy guy, just go get him. Like right now, go get the guy who's going to play the most possible games, because it's been the 49ers by far their biggest issue in this last 5 seasons is just being healthy. I mean, you can make the case that the 49ers might have won multiple Super Bowls in these last few years if they had just been healthy going into them or going into the playoffs. I mean, it's not a far-fetched thing to say. To just kind of, round out the lexicon of what's going on with the 49ers at this position and what the general thinking of the national media is behind what the 49ers should do at this spot. Mel Kiper Jr., who's been doing the mock drafts for a long time and is not always 100% correct with his mock drafts. He's got Caden Proctor going number 27 to the 49ers in his latest mock draft, which I don't hate it, but I do kind of have a little bit of pause for the same reasons that you're talking about, Ayrton. The tackles from Alabama just haven't really been super reliable in the draft these last few years. I mean, you've had some hits, had some misses. Dwayne, what would you feel about the 49ers taking a Caden Proctor or another offensive tackle at this position at number 27 overall? Or do you think that they should still stick to what we were talking about last week, which is get a pass catcher?
That's a tough one. Proctor, the guy he's got elite size and athletic traits, and those Alabama tackles, you got to give it to some of them. I know one guy came out of there. His name was Walter Jones, and we'll see how well Proctor runs. If he ran like Walter Jones ran the 4.6, which if he runs that fast, you got to take a look at him, okay? But the 49ers are hurting so much at wide receiver, I think. Wide receiver will better fit them than anything. And you don't know what's going to happen there with, you can look in the free agent wide receivers, and I don't think there's a big upside of free agent wide receivers that's worth signing right now. So. No. You got to go find one, and it's always the thing that you got to get somebody that can take the top off of defense, and they didn't have nobody like that last year.
Yeah, and I mean, we did see Tyreek Hill enter the free agent discussion. I think it would be pretty far-fetched to think the 49ers might be in on that. He's also going to be 32 going into next year, and he's maybe lost maybe like a half a step or something, but a guy who obviously could cause a lot of damage in space. I think it's likely that he goes to the Chiefs and reunites there with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. But just kind of an interesting thing to maybe consider would be Tyreek Hill on the 49ers. I mean, he would be probably cheaper than Jawan Jennings, which is kind of blows my mind to say that. I mean, I think that Jawan Jennings is probably going to command about a $20 million contract around that area, maybe 20 to 25. And I think Tyreek might be in that 15 to 20 million range for average annual value. We'll see what happens, but I think he might end up with a situation where Tyreek Hill is actually a little bit cheaper than a Jawan Jennings. Also, Tyreek has had some problems staying healthy, staying on the field. Again, not something you really want going into next year is to get more guys with question marks as far as their health goes, but it's pretty slim. I mean, it's pretty slim pickings. I mean, George Pickens would have been the prize in free agency, but obviously he's going to go back to Dallas. Jawan Jennings, Alec Pierce, Wan'Dale Robinson, Deebo Samuel, Tyreek Hill, and then it drops off pretty quick. I mean, Mike Evans, maybe you can throw him in there, but after that, you're looking at guys like Rashid Shaheed, Romeo Dobbs, Keenan Allen, who seems like he's been playing football since Dwayne was on the field, Marquise Brown. Like you got a lot of these guys who are just not it at that position. You're not going to go and find your number one wide receiver in free agency this year. It's just not what's going to happen. But we're hearing more and more rumblings about a potential separation between AJ Brown and the Eagles. Seem to be heading for a divorce. Ayrton, would you like to see the 49ers take a swing at an AJ Brown?
I'm hesitant. I'm hesitant just because of I like AJ Brown's game, that his brand of physicality, I think, would bring a good attitude to the 49ers, especially in the pass catching group. But I just worry about the age. I feel like every time, even though the Eagles were winning so much last year, I don't think I've ever heard a more disgruntled winning team. So I'm curious about if that is institutional to Philly. Is it the players they have in the building? I would, considering as well, even if the 49ers don't go for a wide receiver in the first round, this is a very good wide receiver class. There's a lot of good options where I would rather take maybe a lower risk option with that. I think as the 49ers absolutely should, the front office absolutely should, which is explore every route, every option to get better in whatever that may be. At least consider it. But I would not trade a first round pick for AJ Brown. I would maybe trade a second or a couple thirds package with a potential player. I just, at this point, with his age and off the field, I would just be concerned.
Yeah, I mean, if AJ Brown was upset about not getting the ball because Philly was running too much and throwing the ball to too many other places, I can't imagine he would be very happy here in San Francisco on a day where Christian McCaffrey runs the ball for 27 carries and then has 10 receptions for 70 some odd yards to like lead the 49ers pass catching group. I don't think that AJ Brown would be too happy with that. And I mean, I think of another sort of diva-esque wide receiver. Well, we can just call him a straight up diva. That's what he was. T.O. when he was on the Eagles was, I think AJ Brown might have been chirping more than even like a Terrell Owens did when he was out there asking for Donovan McNabb to throw him the ball more. Or, I think the only guy who I can think of that, complained about this more was maybe Keyshawn Johnson, that I can think of, like one wide receiver in like a single season just bitching and moaning about not getting the football. I think Keyshawn Johnson probably takes the cake on that one. The throw me the damn ball rant was, that lives in my brain forever. But AJ Brown came close a couple times this year with his post-game pressers. Not a fan of running routes without getting the ball, AJ Brown. And in the 49ers system, you're going to be doing that a lot. You're going to be used as a decoy. You're going to be asked to go out in motion a lot of the time. You're going to be asked to block on every single play, which I think AJ Brown does bring a level of intensity when he's blocking on run plays. That is something I like about him. But again, I think that what you said, Ayrton, is pretty spot on. I think that if you're giving up a first or a second for him, that's way too rich for my blood. If you can go get him on maybe a discount, maybe the situation sours enough between the Eagles and AJ Brown that you can maybe sneak in there with like a third or like a third and a fourth, like sure, maybe at that point you would maybe pull the trigger on something like that. He is still a guy who could be a Pro Bowl level talent, an all pro level talent at the wide receiver position, but he clearly would be the number one option here in San Francisco as far as pass catchers go. But again, I don't know that he fits the system super well, and it just might be ultimately a little too rich for the 49ers. Real quick, before we move on from this discussion of things the 49ers need to add in the offseason, I think that when we look at this free agent class, you got some options, at least on the offensive line, like on the interior of the offensive line. I think that there are several guys that the 49ers should be looking at. And I think it starts with Linderbaum from Baltimore. Tyler Linderbaum is 25 years old, going to be 26 next season, and has been one of the best centers in the league. And I think if you were to bring this guy in, that would be the best signing you could make in free agency, in my opinion. Dwayne, if you're looking at this free agent class, if you had to pick one guy for the 49ers to sign, who would that be and why?
Well, you mentioned it. I think Linderbaum would be great for him because they were weak at center last year, and the center has a tough job. He's kind of like, to me, a center is like almost like a goaltender in hockey. He helps the whole team, because this guy is going to come up to the line, he's going to call the fronts, he's going to call the protections, and he's going to know where the help is going to be needed. Okay, so that's an important thing. And the 49ers, I wasn't real impressed with the center. He wasn't a guy that really lit your hair on fire. He was just a guy out there. But if they could get a guy like Linderbaum, that would improve the offensive lineman quite a bit.
The quarterback of the hog mollies up front. I mean, that would be just. I think you're making your entire offensive line better by bringing a guy like that in my opinion. And while they do have other holes, obviously, if Trent Williams leaves, that becomes number one priority, is going to find a Trent Williams replacement. Ayrton, same question. If you had to pick one free agent for the 49ers to pursue at any position, who would it be and why?
That one's tough, but I like Linderbaum, but his number may be a little bit too high. So I offer Cade Mays, veteran center out of Carolina. Carolina had two good centers this year, and I think Cade Mays did a pretty good job. He's young enough where he's entering his age 27 season, so you can rely on him to be around for a few more years. Also, because he wasn't a full-time starter or hasn't been a full-time starter for a bit here, you don't necessarily have to pay him top dollar. So I think having a reliable veteran on the interior would always be good in a Shanahan system. You saw what he did with Alex Mack at multiple stops, for goodness sake. So I like that. I do like Linderbaum's game, but it's more just, could we get, instead of getting Linderbaum, could you get Mays and then another safety, or Mays and then some cornerback depth, or depth somewhere else, where it's like, okay, we get two players who we feel good about versus spending a little extra to get a good one here.
Yeah, and Linderbaum is one of the best at his position. I'm sure that he'll command a salary that reflects that. And it's going to be, I think he's going to be in the $20 million a year range, which is pretty rich for a center. So the 49ers, maybe, with some of their cap restrictions, that might not be something that they can work out. But I think ultimately you got to go find a guard or a center in this free agent class, because you need some help inside, and you don't have a lot of veteran presence there anymore. And there are some pretty good options. Like you said, maybe a Cade Mays, David Edwards from Buffalo, the guard out of Buffalo is going to be probably the highest paid guard in this free agency group. If you're looking for a real veteran, you could go out and get Joel Bitonio from Cleveland, who's damn near 35 years old. And so, or he will be next season. So, I mean, they talk about having some experience. You might have the oldest left side of the line in the entire NFL if you went out and got him and paired him with Trent Williams, but they also might be one of the most dominant despite the age. So, I think that when you're looking at offensive linemen, it's nice to get a guy entering his prime. But I feel like you can go and get another Cleveland guy who's it feels like Cleveland's lost their entire offensive line group. Wyatt Teller, another pretty decent guard who's hitting free agency from Cleveland as well. And hey, I know that Cleveland hasn't won a ton of games. Every time I bring up Cleveland, I have the Joakim Noah quote from like forever ago, where he did the press conference, and the Bulls and the Cavs had that brief rivalry for a minute, and Joakim Noah was asked, if he was excited to go to Cleveland. He said, "What's so great about Cleveland?" And so every time that Cleveland comes up, that's what's going through my brain. And so apparently the entire Cleveland offensive line had the same question. What's so great about Cleveland? Let's leave and find somewhere else to go. Maybe you could grab one of those guys and plug them in. I think that they would be a pretty solid option too. We got to take a quick break here, get through some of this, the Mac Jones thing. It's been ruminating. We talked about it last week, but more and more discussion we're seeing, especially as some other chips kind of fall around the NFL. 49ers getting a familiar face back in their front office, with the former Vikings general manager returning to San Francisco. So maybe there's an option there in Minnesota. It's a little bit of that backdoor connection. So let's talk about it. Mac Jones, some potential trade opportunities for the 49ers. We'll get into that and more next on the Locked On 49ers Squad Show. Today's show is brought to you by HomeChef. As the new year gets going, a lot of people are trying to simplify their routines, and dinner is a big one. Between busy workdays, cold winter nights, and packed schedules, having an easy, reliable dinner plan makes a huge difference. That's where HomeChef comes in. Home Chef takes the stress out of cooking by delivering fresh, pre-portioned ingredients right to your door with easy-to-follow recipes that actually taste great. They're rated #1 by users of meal kits for quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe ease. And it's easy to see why. Meals come ready to fit in your schedule. 30-minute recipes, oven-ready trays, or quick lunches. There's over 30 weekly options, so you'll never get tired of whatever you're ordering, including family-sized meals and different dietary choices, which is great if you got some of those dietary restrictions. I know I can't do a whole lot of dairy, so that's great for me. And, recipes are simple but feel elevated, even restaurant quality with dishes co-created by chefs like Gordon Ramsay. And it saves you time, saves you money. Home Chef customers save an average of $86 per month on groceries. That adds up over the course of a year. For a limited time, Home Chef is offering my listeners 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Just go to homechef.com/lockedon. That's homechef.com/lockedon for 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Must be an active subscriber to receive free dessert. Welcome back to the Locked On 49ers Squad Show. I'm your host, Eric Triple E. Engel, joined by Dwayne Board, 4-time Super Bowl champion, and Ayrton Osley, NFL national reporter for USA Today, who's out there in Indianapolis covering the scouting combine. And guys, as we get closer to the draft, there's always that lingering feeling that the 49ers front office and John Lynch are going to do something to shake things up on draft day. I feel like they make a ton of draft day trades. And the guy who I think is most likely to move on draft day this year is Mac Jones. And we've talked about this a little bit before. But when you're reading the tea leaves, the connection between him and the Vikings seems to be getting stronger and stronger and stronger. There seems to be maybe some momentum there and something that, maybe you could, like you said last week, Ayrton, all it takes is one other team to get in the mix and you got a bidding war. And if the 49ers can drive up a Mac Jones price tag to maybe a second rounder, I think you got to pull the trigger on that. What do you think, Dwayne? Do you think the 49ers need to pull the trigger on a Mac Jones trade if they can get at least a second, maybe a third rounder back?
Well, the smart thing would be for them to do is switch positions with Minnesota. If they could work a deal with Minnesota, okay, switch for the Minnesota's 18th pick in the draft, okay, and that would be the smart thing to do. And then you could move back, and pick up maybe a third or fourth rounder and help build your draft a little bit more. So that's what I would look at. If you can work out a deal like that, swap picks, and the Vikings are a team they pretty much set on offense. All they needed was somebody to get the ball to the receivers they got. They got a great defense, okay? And they got a defensive coordinator that they just paid an incredible amount of money to keep him there. He's making what a head coach is making their first year. So the Vikings are right there licking their chops because they feel like they got to run at that division, and they need a quarterback, and that's who I would be shopping. And now they got somebody in-house who can probably sway some people in Minnesota.
Yeah, Ayrton, I know you were pretty adamant that you thought that if the 49ers were going to make a trade with Mac Jones, it would be to the Vikings. A week later, are you feeling even stronger about that now? Like, when you're reading the tea leaves, are you seeing Mac Jones heading to the frozen tundra of Minnesota?
I think it's just, if Minnesota looks around and looks at their options, it's like it's probably the best one they can do as far as making sure they're cap compliant. This is not a team with a lot of money. This is a team with pretty much, I'll double check, but I think they have the least amount of cap space in the league as it stands. Oh, my bad. They're second behind the Cowboys. So they are $43 million over the salary cap. So going out and trying to get a Malik Willis is just not feasible. Any of these guys are going to be on the open market, like going and re-signing Daniel Jones. If you want to get him back, first of all, he's recovering from the Achilles. Second of all, he's going to cost way more money than you have the ability to pay. So in looking at this draft, there's not a lot of guys besides Mendoza, who we've mentioned, that are, plug and play year one starters. You try to go young with a rookie contract with JJ McCarthy. It didn't work out. So it's just one of those things, you look around, you're like, if you want to win now, maximizing Justin Jefferson's prime, maximizing this defense, you got to get someone who can handle this. And everything that circles back, I think, to Mac Jones.
Yeah, I mean, there are some options out there in free agency, like maybe a Malik Willis or, Kirk Cousins not coming back to Atlanta. Maybe the Vikings want a reunion with Kirk Cousins. But again, I don't know if he's starting quarterback material at this point in his career. Kurt Thuggins, as he is known around the league. But yeah, Mac Jones, I think, is a better option than any of these guys. And I think that he proved that last year, keeping the 49ers afloat while Brock Purdy was out and putting up a lot of career highs in that time frame. I mean, it was a small sample size, but I mean, he had a great completion percentage. He had a great touchdown percentage. I mean, he was a guy who was really doing a lot of things for the 49ers. It wasn't just like he came in there and just handed the ball off to Christian McCaffrey 40 times and called it a day. Mac Jones engineered some wins for the 49ers. I mean, there were a few games that he was really driving the team down the field when they really needed it the most, when it was crunch time, and Mac Jones was there delivering. So I think a lot of teams in the NFL saw that. I think the Vikings, maybe there's also been some rumblings of them maybe moving on from Jordan Addison. So I'm curious, maybe Dwayne, would you be open to like a Mac Jones for Jordan Addison, maybe throw a couple picks in there to make it work? Would that be something that you would be willing to pull the trigger on if you're the 49ers?
Well, the first thing, I think I like the idea of just moving up 9 picks and swapping, positions and bringing in some more help from somebody, because if they can get in the top 10, they can get a good receiver in the top 10. So, and for them to find a quarterback, Shanahan, he'll find a guy, a good backup. And you don't know what's going to happen. Well, I'm not a big Richardson fan in Indianapolis. I didn't really like him when he came out. So, because they don't know what they're going to do with him. So that's a big deal too. If they made a move with him, then he might be a guy that they will look at and say, maybe we can develop this guy, because he's got the traits that you like in a quarterback. He just needs to be developed. And I thought he was a guy when he came out that I thought was pushed into the starting role too soon. The guy didn't earn it. So, and now since he's been out, he's been sitting on the sidelines. And we can switch that too now. You talk about Kirk Cousins. Him and Shanahan were together in Washington, so he could bring him in and make him the backup. Okay, and there you go. You can move Mac Jones easy, and I'm sure that's in Shanahan's. It's in the back of his head right now.
And there is another former 49er who might be available this offseason. I mean, can I interest you in a Jimmy Garoppolo coming back to the 49ers? I can't even interest myself in that. Don't worry. I'm not I can't get past all the hospital balls over the middle of the field, the overthrow of Emmanuel Sanders, how many times that guy's knee has just exploded. I mean, they should definitely not do that. And maybe Trey Lance, he's also a guy who could be available. 49ers could just go get all the former projects that they had that didn't quite work out. Please don't do that if you are the 49ers. So I do agree with you though, Dwayne. Like you look around the league and maybe like a Kenny Pickett. I mean, I think that could be an interesting reclamation project, or the guy that they picked from Indiana a couple years ago in the draft, Rourke. I think that he could be a very good backup for the 49ers. Otherwise, why'd you draft the guy? So I think that's something that they could look at. Ultimately, I think it's the right idea to move Mac Jones. I know the 49ers are going to sit there and they'll say repeatedly till they're blue in the face that I'm assuming John Lynch is going to be asked this question every single time that he gets in front of media at the combine. And he's going to tell you that they're not going to trade Mac Jones. And I think that is a little bit of posturing in some respects. It's him trying to drive up the price of a Mac Jones to other teams, because they're saying, hey, you got to really make us an offer that we can't refuse if we want to get rid of this guy. We aren't the line that they always use, and it's the same thing every year. We aren't in the business of getting rid of good football players. And they say the same thing every single year. And ultimately, they do end up making some trades pretty much every single year, and you see them moving on from guys. So I do think that this is a situation where you got to realize that this is a guy who's going to leave in free agency. He's going to either leave via free agency or via a trade. And do you want to get something back for him, or do you want to just let him walk? And I think if you're the 49ers, you can't really be letting these guys walk at this point. You got to do the Bill Walsh, the get rid of the guy a little bit early, but you get something big back for him because you can still get rid of him while he's got some value. So ultimately, I think that's what the 49ers should do with the Mac Jones situation. We'll see what they're going to do going forward, but I think that they end up trading him. I really do think that there is no way that you can hold on to someone like that who can just help you completely rebuild some of these massive holes that you got, potentially at left tackle, in the middle of the offensive line, on the defensive line, at pass rusher, safety. I mean, you got so many, wide receiver, you got so many holes on this team. You can't just sit there and ride with basically two starting quarterbacks. You can't play them both. Trade one. Obviously, don't trade Brock Purdy, and you'll be a better team for it overall. So, speaking of 49ers pass rushers, on the other side, I want to talk about something that I saw over the weekend. I was gone in Colorado doing some snowboarding, and I saw a 49er kind of doing some similar things, and it kind of concerned me. I'll explain why on the other side here on the Locked On 49er Squad Show. Today's show is brought to you by Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadline stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting wide open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Indeed sponsored jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for. Skills, experience, location, so you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute that I've been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show, Locked On 49ers, will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast, the Locked On 49ers podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Welcome back to the Locked On 49ers Squad Show. We'll wrap this thing up pretty quick here because we're a little bit over time, as is usual here on the Locked On 49ers Squad Show. If you're an everydayer, you already know this. We give you guys some bonus minutes most shows. But guys, the 49ers, every year we hear about the injuries that are happening. Obviously, the substation conversation continues with players in the offseason, which I wish it didn't. I think that's every single show for since the start of the playoffs that we've now brought up the substation. We almost got through it without mentioning it, but I don't personally think that injuries are attributed to those things. I mean, I've heard of a lot of crazy injury things happening throughout the years. Like I was watching Bussin' with the Boys earlier, where Patrick Willis and Delanie Walker went on recently with the guys, and Delanie Walker talked about lying to the 49ers about having a motorcycle crash on Highway 101 where it ripped off like a ton of skin on his arms and legs. This guy had to get skin grafts and showed up at practice the same day he got the skin grafts and just lied to the team about the injury. And Patrick Willis kind of outed him on the show and kind of started telling the story, and Delanie, being Delanie, just said, okay, well, now you open the box. We gotta talk about it now. But the 49ers every year, it seems like they got some weird injuries going on. You got guys who pick up injuries in the offseason. And while I took like a nice little 5-day vacation out to Colorado, got to go snowboarding, which is, if you listen to the show a lot, my favorite thing to do with my free time. And if you're interested, I went to Copper Mountain and Keystone. And I promise this has a football connection, because while I was out there, I'm looking at my social media stuff as one does when they're, bored in the car on the way home from the mountain. It's an hour or two drive. And, I'm sitting there looking at it, and I'm seeing one of my favorite snowboarding accounts, his name's Snowboard Jesus, and he goes around and just kind of does great things on the mountain. He helps people out, brings people food, brings people coffee while they're struggling on the mountain, kind of help find some guy who looks like he's struggling a little bit, tries to give him some tips. He goes out there with his kid a lot, who's I think about 5 years old, and it's just a little ripper, and it's super fun to watch. He found Bryce Huff on the mountain at North Star. And while I don't got any problem with 49ers players recreating in their offseason, in their free time, Bryce Huff was going through the park. This guy's trying to hit rails and boxes and jumps, and he's asking Snowboard Jesus for help. I don't need Bryce Huff doing this, man. Like I'm sitting here watching him try and make it across this box, and he falls right on his butt at the end. It just barely misses, slamming down onto that box, puts his hand down. How every snowboarder knows you're not supposed to put your hand down to brace yourself in that situation. That's how you get a broken wrist. And I'm losing my mind because this is one of the most injury-prone teams. And I love snowboarding. Like I said, my favorite hobby to do in my free time. I don't want any 49ers players at North Star at all the rest of this winter. I mean, I would be stoked if I had been there that day and I had ran into Bryce Huff. But I also would have been kind of frustrated because, like, dude, you are maybe the number 2 most important pass rusher on this team next year. What the hell are you doing? It just blew my mind. And Dwayne, my question here is, what's the most like crazy? You don't got to name any names. You don't got to name any players specifically. But was there like anyone that you played with who had like one of these crazy offseason injuries and just kind of pulled the wool over everybody's eyes and pretend, that's not really how that happened. I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, we've seen this all throughout sports. Madison Bumgarner and the dirt bike, Jeff Kent and the dirt bike also with the San Francisco Giants. Dwayne, what was the weird injury that you knew about that maybe the team didn't have all the details for?
Well, that's a few. I remember one that one player, we were at a bar one night, and he fell off the bar stool and separated his shoulder.
Oh, no.
So that was kept secret for a while, but it was done in practice.
I feel like that's one that you can kind of get away with, like, separated shoulder, that can happen in practice on pretty much any rep if something goes wrong. So you could kind of get away with that one. The Delaney Walker thing is wild to me. Like, I don't know how you have a motorcycle accident and like get away with it as far as like telling the team, no, I'm fine. And they're like, dude, you don't have any skin on your arms or your legs. What do you mean you're fine? He's like, no, don't worry about it. I'm here for practice. That's crazy to me.
What was his excuse? How did he come up with it?
I don't. They didn't really get into that part too much. I think he told them that he fell on his motorcycle, but I think he told them that it was like in a residential zone or like out in front of his house or something. And it was on the freeway. I mean, on 101. I mean, that's insane. That's absolutely insane to me. And I don't know, man, I just don't want Bryce Huff to be in that situation. They're going to need him next year to help put some pressure on the opposing quarterback, hopefully. So I don't know, man. Ayrton, how are you feeling about this Bryce Huff snowboarding situation?
Not great. As we've said multiple times, this is already an injury-prone team. Let's not chance fate anymore. Come on, man, be safe. I'm all for players having their hobbies outside of the NFL. That's all right. Your people too. That's okay. But could we just take a little bit more caution, please?
Maybe not go through the park. Like if I just saw Bryce Huff, cruising down, taking some big wide carving turns all the way down, like, okay, cool. Take it easy, chill, maybe not hit the trees, like just relax, but when I see him going through the park, and he's clearly a guy who does not like, it's not like Bryce Huff has been snowboarding since he was a little kid. You can tell just by watching him. This is something that he's learning, that he's new to in his adult life. Why are you in the park? You are a professional NFL player. It's just insane to me that this guy is risking it. And I'm sure that the 49ers can't be too happy about this, because I know that a lot of players have clauses in their contracts that they're not allowed to do certain things. in the offseason. And I do wonder if this was part of it. I'm curious to see if Snowboard Jesus ends up getting costing Bryce Huff some money, because Bryce Huff didn't post anything about him being a North Star. It was Snowboard Jesus who did. So kind of an interesting situation. But man, just a little bit perplexing decision making there by Bryce Huff. And I'm not going to knock the guy for having hobbies, like you said, Ayrton. I think it's totally fine that you got some hobbies, and I'm even fine with you snowboarding in your free time. Just please, for the love of God, stay out of the park, stay out of the trees. Just minimize obstacles in ways that you can get hurt, because, man, you don't need to add any more of those to the 49ers lexicon. There are already so many, as we talk about very often on this show. So to my knowledge, Bryce Huff did not injure himself while he was out there. So hopefully we don't see him pop up on like an offseason injury report with like a broken wrist, and you're like, oh, I wonder how that happened. But anyways, that's about all the time we got for you guys today here on the Lockdown 49ers Squad Show, closing it out with some Bryce Huff snowboarding conversation. Wide-ranging show today. We got through some offensive linemen, some prospects that you should be keeping an eye on. Ayrton live from the Underwear Olympics, and we'll be having more live coverage from the Underwear Olympics, the NFL Combine, when we go live 2 days from now on Friday at our usual time. I'll update you guys on the Bird app on Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it these days. I'll make sure I tweet out what time we're doing the show. Might have to change some things up with the NFL Combine, and obviously our own Ayrton Osley in attendance. So we'll see what happens. But either way, we're going live Friday. Make sure you're tuned in. Make sure you're subscribed. That way you get the notifications of when we are going to go live. And we'll get into the weeds of the NFL Combine and who you should be watching, risers, fallers, all of that fun stuff. So shout out to all our everydayers for making it through to the end, despite 15 bonus minutes today. Wow, that's a lot here on the Locked On 49ers Squad Show. Make sure you are subscribed on the YouTube channel, on the podcast channel, however you get in the show. We appreciate it. That's all the time we got for you guys today. For myself, Eric Triple E Engel, for Dwayne Board and Ayrton Osley, we'll see you next time. Peace.